Struggling single dad. Let a woman cut in line. When she turned around, he fell to his knees. Because staring back at him wasn't just a stranger, it was the face of his dead wife, and the toddler she was holding might be his. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Ethan's knees hit the cold linoleum floor. His breath caught in his throat. The fluorescent lights of the Dollar General seemed to dim around him as memories crashed through his mind like waves. The woman's face, it was identical to Maria's, his late wife. The same warm brown eyes, gentle curve of her nose, and kind smile that had captured his heart over 5 years ago. Daddy? Lily's small voice cut through his shock. She tugged at his sleeve again, confusion and worry crossing her young features. Why are you on the floor? The woman turned back, her own expression shifting from surprise to concern. Sir, are you all right? She adjusted her grip on her squirming toddler, who was reaching for a display of colorful candy bars near the checkout. Ethan blinked hard, trying to clear his vision. Up close, he could see the differences now. This woman's hair was shorter, styled differently, and she had a small beauty mark near her left eye that Maria never had. But the resemblance was still striking enough to make his hands tremble as he pushed himself back to his feet. I'm fine, he managed, his voice rough. Just got a little dizzy there for a second. He forced a weak smile, though his heart was still racing. The other customers in line were staring now, and he felt heat creep up his neck. The cashier, an elderly woman with kind eyes, leaned forward. Would you like some water, honey? You went white as a sheet there. No, thank you. I'll be okay. Ethan placed a steadying hand on Lily's shoulder, as much for his own comfort as for hers. She wrapped her small arms around his leg, pressing her face against his worn jeans. The woman who looked like Maria was still watching him with concern, her toddler now quietly sucking his thumb. Are you sure? Maybe you should sit down for a minute. Her voice was different from Maria's, slightly higher, with a hint of a southern accent, but it held the same gentleness that made his chest ache. Really? I'm fine, Ethan insisted, though his legs still felt wobbly. He glanced down at Lily, who was peering up at him with those big brown eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. Just haven't eaten lunch yet today, that's all. The woman nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced, but turned back to place her items on the counter. As she dug through her purse for her wallet, Ethan couldn't help but notice her hands were shaking slightly too. She fumbled with her cards, dropping one on the floor. Without thinking, Ethan bent to pick it up, careful not to startle her. Here, he said softly, holding it out. Thank you, she murmured, their fingers brushing briefly as she took the card. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, and Ethan quickly withdrew his hand. Lily, always perceptive beyond her years, looked between the woman and her father. Daddy, she looks like the lady in the picture by your bed. Ethan felt his face flush hot again. The woman paused in the middle of paying, her eyes widening slightly. The cashier, who had been quietly ringing up items, slowed her movements, clearly interested in the unfolding scene. I'm sorry, Ethan apologized quickly. Kids, you know how they are. He gently squeezed Lily's shoulder, but she wasn't done. The pretty lady who's my mommy in heaven, Lily continued, her innocent voice carrying in the quiet store. Daddy says she was an angel, and now she watches over us. The woman's hands stilled completely on her wallet. Her toddler, picking up on the sudden tension, started to fuss. She bounced him gently, automatically, but her eyes were fixed on Ethan's face. I'm so sorry, Ethan said again, wishing the floor would open up and swallow him whole. We shouldn't be bothering you with our personal— No, please, the woman interrupted softly. Don't apologize. She smiled down at Lily, though her eyes were misty. Your daddy's right, sweetie. I'm sure your mommy is watching over you both. The cashier finished ringing up the woman's items, and the total flashed on the screen. The woman swiped her card, but it was declined. She tried again, her cheeks flushing pink. Again, the machine beeped its rejection. I'm so sorry, she whispered, beginning to separate her items. I'll just take the diapers and formula. Before Ethan could stop himself, he was pulling out his own worn wallet. Please, let me help. The words were out of his mouth before he could think better of it. He knew he couldn't really afford it. His own mental calculations for his shopping had been tight enough, but something in him couldn't bear to see the look of quiet desperation on her face. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. She started to protest, but Ethan was already holding out his debit card to the cashier. I insist, he said quietly. I've been there before. Sometimes we all need a little help. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back quickly. "Thank you," she whispered. "I just started a new job, but my first paycheck hasn't come through yet, and my son's father." She trailed off, shaking her head. "You don't need to explain," Ethan assured her, though his heart clenched at the familiar story. He knew all too well how quickly life could turn upside down, how one moment you could have everything figured out and the next be counting coins for basic necessities. As the cashier ran his card, thankfully, it went through. Lily tugged at the woman's shirt. "Your baby is cute," she said, smiling at the toddler who was now watching her with curious eyes. "I always wanted a little brother or sister." The woman laughed softly, though her voice was still thick with emotion. "His name is James. Can you say hi, James?" The toddler buried his face in his mother's neck, but peeked out with a shy smile at Lily, who waved enthusiastically. As the cashier handed over the bags, the woman turned to Ethan. "I'm Kara," she said softly, "and I don't know how to thank you enough." "Ethan," he replied, his voice equally quiet. "And please, don't mention it. Anyone would have done the same." But they both knew that wasn't true. In a world that often seemed cold and indifferent, moments of genuine kindness stood out like stars in the night sky. Ethan stared at the woman, his heart pounding against his ribs. The same delicate features, the same gentle slope of her cheekbones, it was as if Marianne herself stood before him, a ghost made flesh in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the Dollar General. "Sir? Are you okay?" The cashier's concerned voice barely registered. The woman who looked so impossibly like his late wife quickly swiped her card and gathered her bags, her movements sharp and hurried. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and he saw a flash of recognition, followed by something that looked like fear. She rushed past him, the automatic doors whooshing shut behind her. "Daddy?" Lily's small hand found his again. "Why are you on the floor?" Ethan blinked, suddenly aware of his surroundings, the curious stares of other customers. The cold seeping through his jeans, where his knees pressed against the linoleum. He pushed himself up, his legs shaky. "I'm okay, sweetie," he managed, though his voice sounded strange even to his own ears. "Just got a little dizzy for a second." The rest of their shopping passed in a blur. Ethan's hands trembled as he handed over his carefully counted coupons, his mind replaying that brief encounter over and over. The cashier had to remind him twice about his change. The drive home was quiet, save for Lily's occasional humming from her car seat. Rain peppered the windshield, and Ethan gripped the steering wheel too tightly, his knuckles white. That face, it couldn't be possible. Yet he knew what he'd seen. "Who was that lady, Daddy?" Lily asked as they pulled into their apartment complex's parking lot. "The one that made you fall down?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Just someone who reminded me of somebody, baby girl." Inside their small apartment, Ethan moved on autopilot, putting away their meager groceries while Lily settled in front of the TV with her worn coloring book. His eyes kept drifting to the hall closet, where he kept the boxes he couldn't bring himself to open anymore. Finally, after serving Lily her dinner of peanut butter sandwiches and apple slices, he couldn't resist. He pulled down the old shoebox from the top shelf, dust dancing in the dim light of the hallway. The first photo he found was from their wedding day. Marianne, radiant in her simple white dress, her smile bright enough to light up the whole world. His hands shook as he compared the memory of the woman from the store to his wife's photograph. The resemblance was uncanny beyond coincidence. The same warm brown eyes, the same subtle dimple in her left cheek when she smiled. More photos spilled out. Marianne at the beach, laughing as waves crashed around her feet. Marianne painting the nursery, her face spotted with yellow paint. Marianne in her hospital gown, still beautiful even as the illness took its toll, her hand resting protectively over her swollen belly. "Is that Mommy?" Ethan startled. Lily stood beside him, her small finger pointing at the photos scattered across the coffee table. Her eyes were wide with curiosity and something else, a longing that made his heart ache. "Yeah, sweetheart, that's Mommy. She looks like the lady from the store," Lily said matter-of-factly, with the simple clarity of a child. Ethan gathered her into his arms, breathing in the sweet smell of her strawberry shampoo. "She does, doesn't she?" Later that night, after reading Lily 3 stories and tucking her into bed with Mr. Whiskers, her treasured stuffed cat, Ethan sat alone in the living room. The photos were back in their box, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had happened today, something that would change everything. The ancient wall clock ticked steadily, marking time in the quiet apartment. Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm against the windows. Ethan's mind wandered to the woman at the store, not just her face, but the toddler she'd been carrying. The way she'd seemed to recognize him too, the fear in her eyes before she fled. A soft knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. Ethan glanced at the clock, 9:47 p.m. His heart began to race. Nobody ever visited this late, especially not on a rainy Tuesday night. The knock came again, barely audible above the pattering rain. He approached the door cautiously, acutely aware of Lily sleeping down the hall. Through the peephole, illuminated by the dim porch light, stood the woman from the store. She was soaked from the rain, clutching what looked like a small pink coat in her hands. Her face, Marianne's face, was etched with conflict, her eyes carrying a storm of emotions. Ethan's hand hovered over the doorknob. Through the door, he could hear her shifting her weight, could almost feel her uncertainty. The same uncertainty that coursed through his own veins. Time seemed to stretch like taffy as he stood there. His world narrowed to this moment, this decision. Finally, with a deep breath that did little to steady his nerves, he opened the door. She stood there, rain dripping from her dark hair, looking simultaneously like a stranger and the most familiar person in the world. Her knuckles were white where they gripped the little coat, and up close, he could see the slight differences his shock had hidden before a small scar near her eyebrow. A different way of carrying herself. They stared at each other, the weight of unspoken questions hanging in, the humid air between them. The coat in her hands dripped steadily onto the welcome mat, creating a small puddle that reflected the yellow porch light. Neither spoke, neither moved. The rain continued its steady percussion on the metal awning above, accompanying the wild beating of Ethan's heart as he faced this impossible mirror of his past, waiting to hear what she had to say. "Come in," Ethan managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. The small coat in Kara's hands trembled as she stepped into the modest living room. Family photos lined the walls, most of them featuring Lily, but a few showed a radiant young woman whose face matched Kara's with haunting precision. "I'm sorry to show up like this," Kara said, her composure wavering, "but after what happened at the store." She paused, taking in the worn furniture and the scattered toys on the carpet. "I'm Kara Langston. I was Marianne's sister-in-law." Ethan's knees felt weak. He gestured toward the faded plaid couch, and Kara sank into it, still clutching the tiny coat like a shield. From down the hall came the soft sound of Lily humming to herself in her bedroom. "The little girl with you at the store?" Ethan said, lowering himself into the armchair across from Kara. "She's Hope," Kara finished for him. "She's 4. She smoothed the coat in her lap, her hands shaking. "And she's your daughter, Ethan." The room seemed to tilt. Ethan gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "That's not possible," he whispered. "Marianne died. During childbirth with Lily. I know." Kara's eyes filled with tears. "But before the cancer came back, you and Marianne had frozen embryos. Do you remember?" The memory hit him like a physical blow. Of course he remembered. It had been their backup plan, their insurance against the possibility that the chemotherapy might affect their chances of having more children. But after losing Marianne, he'd been too devastated to even think about those frozen hopes. "Margaret, Marianne's mother," Kara continued, her voice tight with emotion. "She never approved of you, never thought you were good enough for her daughter. After Marianne passed, Kara took a shuddering breath. She used one of the embryos, found a surrogate. She wanted another piece of Marianne, but without you in the picture." Ethan stood up abruptly, pacing the small room. His mind raced, trying to process the impossible. "How?" he demanded. "That's not legal. She couldn't have. She had money, connections. She forged documents." Kara's voice cracked. "I didn't know until Hope was already born. By then, Margaret was sick herself. Cancer, it runs in the family. She asked me to take Hope, to raise her." She looked up at Ethan, her eyes pleading. "I loved her from the moment I saw her. She needed me." Ethan stopped pacing, bracing himself against the wall. Through the thin barrier, he could still hear Lily's quiet singing, his daughter, and now, somehow, impossibly, he had another. "Prove it," he said hoarsely. "Prove what you're saying is true." Kara reached into her purse with trembling fingers and withdrew an envelope, yellowed with age and worn at the corners. "Marianne wrote this," she said softly. "Before she died, it was meant for you. But Margaret, she kept it. I found it among Hope's adoption papers after Margaret passed." Ethan took the envelope, his heart thundering in his chest. His name was written across the front in Marianne's familiar flowing script. The sight of her handwriting made his throat constrict. With unsteady hands, he opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. The paper still held a trace of Marianne's perfume, that subtle vanilla scent she'd always worn. His vision blurred as he began to read. "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. I'm so sorry, my love. Sorry to leave you, sorry to leave our beautiful Lily, but there's something else I need to tell you. Something that gives me hope even as I write these words. Our frozen embryos, they're more than just backup plans now. They're possibilities, little pieces of our love waiting to bloom. I know you, Ethan. I know the weight of grief you'll carry, the way you'll blame yourself, even though none of this is your fault. But I want you to know that it's okay to find happiness again. It's okay to let love back in. If anything happens to these embryos, if any children come from them, know that they are a gift. Know that they carry not just our DNA, but all the hopes and dreams we shared. Love them, Ethan, as I know you will. Love them for both of us. Remember what you promised me, that you wouldn't let grief steal your joy forever, that you'd keep your heart open, even when it feels impossible. I release you from any guilt, my love. I want you to live, to love, to find happiness again. Take care of our babies, all of them, and take care of yourself. All my love, always." Marianne, the letter, slipped from Ethan's fingers, floating to the carpet like a fallen leaf. He sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Kara moved to help him, but stopped herself, giving him space to process the revelation. "She's really mine?" Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. "Hope is really." "Yes," Kara whispered. "She has your eyes, your smile. I see it every day. I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing her, afraid of disrupting her life. She wiped her own tears. Afraid of facing Marianne's ghost every time I looked in the mirror. From down the hall came the patter of small feet. "Daddy?" Lily called out. "Who's talking?" Ethan quickly wiped his face, trying to compose himself. The weight of this revelation pressed on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He had another daughter, a little girl who'd been kept from him, who didn't even know he existed. And now she was here, just a few miles away, being raised by a woman who wore his late wife's face. The universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. Morning sunlight filtered through Ethan's kitchen window as he sat at the small table, clutching Marianne's letter. He'd read it a dozen times since Kara left last night, but his hand still shook as he unfolded the delicate paper again. "My dearest Ethan," the familiar handwriting began. "If you're reading this, it means our little miracle has found her way into the world, even though I couldn't be there to see it." Ethan pressed his palm against his eyes, fighting back tears. The letter went on to explain everything: how she'd known her mother might try to use the frozen embryos, how she'd wanted to tell him but feared burdening him while he was already dealing with her illness and caring for Lily. He glanced at the clock, 7:30 a.m. Lily was still asleep, worn out from the emotional evening before. Moving quietly, he went to his bedroom closet and pulled down a battered filing box. Inside, beneath tax returns and old receipts, he, sigh-bouted, found the fertility clinic paperwork from 5 years ago. The dates aligned perfectly with what Kara had told him. The legal forms, the consent documents, even the little heart Marianne had drawn next to her signature, it was all there. His hands trembled as he spread the papers across the kitchen table. A soft knock at the back door startled him. Miss Edna Holloway stood on his small porch, holding a plate of fresh-baked muffins. The retired judge had been his neighbor and unofficial grandmother figure since he'd moved in with Lily 3 years ago. "Thought you might need breakfast," she said, letting herself in. Her keen eyes took in the scattered papers and his red-rimmed eyes. "And maybe a friendly ear?" Ethan managed a weak smile. "How do you always know?" "Small town, sugar, plus I saw that pretty young woman leaving here last night." Miss Edna set down the muffins and pulled up a chair. "Want to tell me about it?" The whole story poured out of him: the chance meeting at Dollar General, Kara's revelation, and the existence of hope. Miss Edna listened quietly, her weathered hands folded on the table. "Lord above," she whispered when he finished, "that child is truly a gift. But what do I do?" Ethan's voice cracked. "She's my daughter, but Kara's her mother in every way that matters. She's raised her, loved her, and who says both those things can't be true?" Miss Edna reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "Love multiplies, Ethan. It doesn't divide. Before he could respond, tiny footsteps padded down the hallway. Lily appeared, rubbing her eyes, her dark curls wild from sleep. "Daddy, is Miss Edna making muffins?" "Sure am. Sweet pea, miss." Edna smiled, pulling Lily onto her lap. "And I hear you might be meeting a new friend today?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Would you like that, Lily, if I invited Kara and Hope over for dinner tonight?" Lily's face lit up. "The pretty lady from the store and the little girl with the pink boots? That's right," Ethan said, his heart warming at her enthusiasm. "Yes, please." Lily bounced in Miss Edna's lap. "Can we make spaghetti? With the red sauce like Mama's recipe?" Something caught in Ethan's throat. "That's a wonderful idea, baby." After Miss Edna left, Ethan called Kara's number from the business card she'd left. His fingers shook slightly as he dialed. "Hello?" Kara's voice was tentative. "It's Ethan. I've read everything. The letter, the clinic papers, and I was wondering if you and Hope would like to come for dinner tonight." Lily's excited to meet Hope properly. A pause stretched across the line. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said, surprising himself with his certainty. "We're making Marianne's spaghetti sauce." Another pause, shorter this time. "What time should we come?" That evening, Ethan's small house filled with the familiar scent of garlic and basil. Lily helped him set the table, carefully placing each fork just so. When the doorbell rang, she ran to answer it, with Ethan close behind. Kara stood on the porch, holding Hope's hand. The little girl wore a yellow dress and clutched a stuffed rabbit. Her eyes, so like Lily's, darted shyly between Ethan and his daughter. "Hi," Hope whispered. "Hi." Lily beamed. "Do you want to see my dollhouse? It has a tiny kitchen and everything." Hope looked up at Kara, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay." The girls disappeared down the hallway, their giggles echoing through the house. Kara stepped inside, holding up a bag. "I brought garlic bread. I hope that's okay." "Perfect," Ethan said softly. "Thank you." They moved to the kitchen, working around each other with careful politeness as they finished dinner preparations. Through the doorway, they could see the girls in the living room, already lost in an elaborate game involving the dollhouse and Hope's stuffed rabbit. "They seem to be getting along," Kara observed, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan nodded, stirring the sauce. "Lily's been lonely. We don't get out much." The dinner itself was easier than either adult expected. The girls chattered about favorite colors and cartoon characters, creating their own little world across the table. Ethan watched as Hope carefully twirled spaghetti on her fork, just like Lily had learned to do, and his heart twisted with recognition. As they finished eating, Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can Hope come back tomorrow, please?" "We didn't finish our game." Ethan glanced at Kara, who was helping Hope wipe sauce from her chin. Their eyes met over the children's heads. "Would you like to?" he asked quietly. "Come back tomorrow. Maybe around the same time?" Kara looked at Hope, who was nodding enthusiastically. Yes," she said finally. "Yes, we'd like that." After they left, Ethan stood at the window, watching their car pull away. Behind him, Lily was already planning tomorrow's games, her voice bright with excitement. He touched the letter in his pocket, feeling the worn edges of the paper, and for the first time in years, the weight of grief felt just a little lighter. The aroma of spaghetti and garlic bread filled Ethan's modest kitchen. He'd spent extra time cleaning the house, making sure everything was just right. Lily had even helped set the table, carefully placing each fork with determined concentration. When Kara arrived with Hope, the little girl immediately ran to Lily, their giggles echoing through the small house. The sound made Ethan's heart squeeze in his chest. He watched as Kara set down a chocolate cake on the counter, her movements careful and measured. "I hope you like chocolate," she said softly. "Marianne always said it was your favorite." Ethan nodded, throat tight. She remembered right. He stirred the pasta sauce, giving himself a moment to steady his voice. "Lily, Hope time to wash hands." The girls scampered to the bathroom, their footsteps thundering down the hallway. In the kitchen's sudden quiet, Ethan and Kara moved around each other, setting out plates and cups, falling into an unexpectedly natural rhythm. Over plates of steaming spaghetti, Kara smiled at a memory. Marianne once tried to make this elaborate tiramisu for Christmas. It was a disaster, coffee everywhere, mascarpone cheese on the ceiling somehow. She shook her head, but she just laughed and laughed. "That sounds like her," Ethan said, helping Lily twirl her pasta. Remember when she painted that mural in the church nursery? Got more paint on herself than the wall. She wore those paint-splattered overalls for weeks after, Kara added. Then her smile faded. She was so proud of that mural. The girls chatted about their favorite cartoons, oblivious to the weight of memories floating above the table. Hope had marinara sauce on her chin, and without thinking, Ethan reached over to wipe it away. The gesture felt so natural, it startled him. As they cleared the dishes, Kara's shoulders tensed. "After Mom passed," she said quietly, loading the dishwasher. "Rachel, my ex-fiancée, she just couldn't handle it. The responsibility of Hope, the grief, all of it." She closed the dishwasher with a soft click. She left one morning. No note, just gone. Ethan noticed how her hands trembled slightly. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. Hope was only 2. She doesn't remember Rachel, but... Kara's voice cracked. "Sometimes I think she feels the abandonment, you know? Like it's in her bones." The girls pleading for a movie interrupted the heavy moment. They all settled in the living room. Hope and Lily sprawled on blankets on the floor, while Ethan and Kara sat at opposite ends of the worn couch. As animated characters danced across the screen, Ethan found himself watching the girls instead. Hope had Marianne's nose, he realized with a start. The way she scrunched it when she laughed, pure Marianne. Lily's head drooped, then Hope's, until both girls were sound asleep. Their small hands, nearly touching. Something warm and terrifying bloomed in Ethan's chest. Hope, his daughter. The word felt foreign and familiar all at once, like a song he'd forgotten he knew. The possibility of being a father again to this little girl who shared his blood but was a stranger overwhelmed him. When he looked up, he caught Kara watching the girls too, tears shining in her eyes. She quickly wiped them away and stood up. "I should get Hope home," she whispered, her voice unsteady. This was, "I need to think." She gathered Hope into her arms, the little girl barely stirring. "Thank you for dinner, but I need time." Ethan wanted to say something, anything, but words failed him. He watched them leave. Hope's head heavy on Kara's shoulder, dark curls spilling down her back. After carrying Lily to bed, Ethan sat in the darkness of his living room. The house felt emptier somehow, as if Hope and Kara had taken something vital with them when they left. He thought of Hope's smile, so, like Marianne's, it hurt. Thought of being a father to her, the joy and terror of it tangled together in his gut. Sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Hope and Lily sleeping side by side. Saw the family they could be, saw all the ways it could fall apart. The weight of responsibility pressed on his chest. He'd already failed one daughter by struggling to provide. Could he really be what Hope needed? What she deserved? The night stretched endless before him, full of questions without answers. Dawn would come too soon, and with it, no clarity, just the echo of children's laughter and the ghost of possibilities he wasn't sure he was ready to face. The morning sun cast long shadows across Ethan's worn kitchen floor when 3 sharp knocks echoed through the house. He glanced at the clock, 7:45 a.m. Lily was still asleep, curled up with her favorite stuffed elephant. Opening the door, he found Kara standing there, holding 2 paper coffee cups and looking like she hadn't slept much. Her usually neat hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "I hope it's not too early," she said, holding out one of the cups. "I got your address from the paperwork and I needed to talk." "Thanks," Ethan said, accepting the coffee. "Come in. Lily's still sleeping." Kara stepped inside, her shoulders tense. She perched on the edge of his faded couch, both hands wrapped around her coffee cup like it was keeping her anchored. "Hope's with my neighbor," she said quickly, as if answering a question he hadn't asked. "She's good with her. I needed to think clearly for a minute." Ethan sat in his old armchair, giving her space. "Take your time." Kara took a long sip of coffee, then set the cup down on the coffee table. Her hands were shaking slightly. "I'm not doing great," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could handle everything on my own. I've always handled everything on my own, but lately..." She pressed her lips together, fighting for control. "The daycare costs keep going up," she continued. "My teaching salary barely covers the basics. I had to move to a smaller apartment last month, and Hope, she swallowed hard. Hope deserves so much more than what I can give her alone." Ethan leaned forward, his coffee forgotten. "You're not alone anymore, aren't I?" Kara's laugh was sharp, brittle. We're practically strangers. And the legal system. Do you know how expensive custody battles can get? I can barely afford groceries some weeks. Who said anything about battles? Ethan's voice was gentle. We could try shared custody. Work something out between us first, before involving lawyers. Kara laughed again, but this time it was tinged with something closer to hysteria. Just like that? Share our daughter like we're dropping off library books? No, Ethan said patiently. Like two adults who both want what's best for Hope. And Lily too, you, saw how well they got along last night. Kara's expression softened at the mention of the girls. They did, didn't they? She picked up her coffee again, taking a thoughtful sip. Hope talked about Lily all the way home. She's never connected with another child like that. One day at a time, Ethan suggested. That's all we can do, right? Kara nodded slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. One day at a time, she repeated, as if testing how the words felt. Speaking of which, Ethan said, glancing at the clock, it's supposed to be nice today. Maybe we could take the girls to Jefferson Park this afternoon? There's a great playground there. A small smile tugged at Kara's lips. Hope loves slides. She'd be thrilled. They agreed to meet at 2 o'clock. When Kara left, some of the heaviness seemed to have lifted from her face. Later that afternoon, the playground rang with children's laughter. Lily and Hope raced from the swings to the monkey bars, their excitement infectious. Ethan pushed them on the swings while Kara spotted them on the climbing wall, both girls giggling as they reached for the next hold. Higher, Daddy! Lily called from her swing. Me too, Hope echoed, not missing a beat. Ethan's heart squeezed at Hope, calling him Daddy, though she probably didn't even realize she'd done it. He caught Kara's eye, and she gave him a small nod, letting him know it was okay. An elderly woman on a nearby bench smiled at them. What a beautiful family you have, she said warmly to Kara as she walked past. Kara opened her mouth to correct her, then closed it again. Her cheeks flushed pink as she murmured a quiet, thank you. The afternoon passed quickly, filled with ice cream cones and chalk drawings on the sidewalk. When the girls started yawning, they knew it was time to head home. I parked over here, Kara said, gesturing toward the far end of the lot. Hope was already half asleep in her arms. Ethan walked beside her, carrying an equally drowsy Lily. The setting sun painted the sky in soft pinks and oranges, casting a gentle glow over everything. At Kara's car, they carefully transferred the girls to their car seats. Lily stirred just enough to wave sleepily at Hope before drifting off again. Kara shut the back door quietly and turned to face Ethan. The evening light caught in her hair, and for a moment, he forgot to breathe. She looked so much like Marianne, but somehow completely different too. Her eyes held their own kind of strength, their own story. Thank you, she said softly, for today, for understanding. Thank you for trusting me with the truth about Hope, Ethan replied, and for being such a good mother to her. Their eyes met and held. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps of the shared path they were now walking. Or maybe something else, something neither was ready to name. The moment stretched out, delicate as spun glass, until a car door slammed somewhere in the parking lot, breaking the spell. Kara quickly got into her car, but her gaze lingered on Ethan through the window for just a second longer before she drove away. Ethan stood watching until her taillights disappeared around the corner, Lily's warm weight against his shoulder grounding him in the growing dusk. One day at a time, he reminded himself. One day at a time. The old church stood quiet in the morning light, its weathered brick walls and white trim a familiar sight from years past. Ethan sat in his truck, hands gripping the steering wheel as memories washed over him. Marianne's radiant smile on their wedding day, her gentle hands holding newborn Lily. The last time she'd walked through those heavy wooden doors. He hadn't been back since the funeral. Drawing a deep breath, Ethan finally stepped out of his truck. The gravel crunched under his boots as he made his way up the path. Each step felt heavier than the last. The door creaked as he pushed it open, the sound echoing in the empty sanctuary. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across worn wooden pews. The air smelled of old hymnals and furniture polish exactly as he remembered. Ethan? A gentle voice called from the side door. Is that you, son? Pastor Jim Wallace emerged from his office, his silver hair catching the morning light. His kind eyes crinkled with concern as he took in Ethan's troubled expression. Pastor Jim. Ethan's voice came out rougher than he intended. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Never too busy for you, Pastor Jim said, walking over. He gestured to a nearby pew. Want to sit? Ethan nodded, sinking onto the smooth wood. His fingers traced absent patterns on the hymnal rack in front of him, the same spot where Marianne used to rest her Bible during services. I heard about hope, Pastor Jim said quietly. News travels fast in small towns. Ethan looked up sharply. How much do you know? Enough. Pastor Jim's voice was gentle. Actually, I've been waiting for you to come by. There's something I need to give you. The pastor disappeared into his office and returned moments later with a cream-colored envelope, slightly yellowed with age. Ethan's name was written across the front in Marianne's flowing script. She left this with me about a week before. Pastor Jim cleared his throat. She made me promise to give it to you when the time was right, when you found out about hope. Ethan's hands trembled as he took the envelope. She knew? She knew her mother might try something with the remaining embryo. She wanted to make sure you had her words to guide you when the time came. The paper felt impossibly heavy in Ethan's hands. He broke the seal carefully, unfolding the pages inside. Marianne's familiar handwriting filled the pages, as clear and beautiful as if she'd written it yesterday. My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means you've discovered the truth about our last embryo. I know a mother, she won't be able to let it go, to let that possibility of life slip away. And knowing her, she'll try to keep it from you somehow. But you deserve to know, my love. You deserve to be part of this child's life, if that's what comes to pass. And more than that, you deserve to know that I want this for you. I've been thinking a lot about love lately, about how it grows and changes, how it surprises us, how it finds ways to bloom even in the hardest soil. I know you, Ethan. I know you'll probably feel guilty about loving another child, about possibly loving another woman someday. You'll think it somehow diminishes what we had. It doesn't. Love multiplies. It doesn't divide. Our love story was beautiful, but it doesn't have to be your only one. You have so much love to give, Ethan, such a capacity for joy and tenderness. Don't bury that with me. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. He wiped them away with the back of his hand, continuing to read. If you're reading this, it means there's another child out there who carries a piece of both of us. Whether through my mother's scheming or God's plan, probably both. Knowing my family, this child exists. And I want you to embrace that miracle fully, without reservation or guilt. Be a father again, Ethan. Be the wonderful, patient, loving dad I know you are. Show this child the same tender heart you've shown Lily. And please, please don't close yourself off from the possibility of new love. You deserve happiness, sweetheart. You deserve a full life. I'll always be part of your story, but I don't want to be the end of it. Let yourself live. Let yourself love. That's what I want for you, what I've always wanted. Asterisk. All my love, Marianne times P. And if you're wondering if it's okay to love someone who reminds you of me, it is. The heart knows what it needs. The letter dropped to his lap as Ethan buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Pastor Jim's hand came to rest on his shoulder, a steady presence. As grief and gratitude warred in his chest, she knew, Ethan whispered. Somehow, she knew everything. Marianne had a way of seeing things clearly, Pastor Jim said softly. Even at the end, she was thinking of others. Of you. Ethan sat there for a long time, letting the peace of the sanctuary wash over him as Marianne's words settled into his heart. The colored light from the windows shifted across the floor as morning turned to afternoon. Finally, he carefully folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. Thank you, he said to Pastor Jim, for keeping this safe, for knowing when I needed it. That's what shepherds do, the pastor replied with a gentle smile. We help guide the flock home. Walking back to his truck, Ethan felt lighter somehow. Marianne's words had unlocked something in his chest, given him permission he didn't know he needed. He pulled out his phone and dialed Kara's number before he could second-guess himself. She answered on the third ring. Ethan, is everything okay? Yes. No. He took a deep breath. I need to tell you something. About Hope. What about her? Kara's voice held a note of worry. I want to be in her life, really in her life, not just as some part-time dad or weekend visitor. I want to be there for everything, her scraped knees and bedtime stories, her first day of school, and her dance recitals. I want to protect her, guide her, love her. I want to be her family. His voice cracked on the last word. If you'll let me. The silence on the other end of the line stretched out until Ethan's heart began to race. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it, Kara whispered, "Yes." The spare room in Ethan's small rental had been storage for years, a catch-all space filled with boxes of memories he couldn't bear to sort through and items he might need someday. Now, as he hauled the last cardboard box to the garage, bright morning sunlight streamed through the freshly cleaned window, illuminating walls that desperately needed attention. "Daddy, can I help paint?" Lily bounced on her toes beside him, already wearing one of his old t-shirts as a makeshift smock. "Sure can, sweet pea." Ethan ruffled her hair and pried open a can of soft yellow paint left over from when he decorated Lily's nursery 4 years ago. "But remember what we talked about? Small strokes, just like coloring in your books." The sound of tires on gravel drew their attention. Through the window, they watched Kara's sedan pull up, packed with suitcases and boxes. Hope's car seat was visible in the back, her small face pressed against the window with wide-eyed curiosity. "They're here!" Lily ran for the front door. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. This was really happening. He wiped his palms on his jeans and followed his daughter. Outside, Kara was helping Hope from her car seat. The little girl clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, a well-loved thing with floppy ears that reminded Ethan of Lily's cherished teddy bear. "Welcome home," he said softly, then quickly added, welcome to our home, for now." He didn't want to pressure Kara with permanence. Kara gave him a small smile, adjusting Hope on her hip. "Thank you for this, Ethan, really. Come see your room." Lily grabbed Hope's hand as soon as her feet touched the ground. "Daddy's painting it yellow." The girls disappeared inside, their excited chatter echoing through the small house. Ethan and Kara shared a look before starting to unload the car. "I hope the room's okay," Ethan said, lifting a heavy box. "It's not much, but it's perfect," Kara interrupted. "More than perfect. You didn't have to go to all this trouble." They carried boxes and bags inside, working in companionable silence. The spare room was transforming with each trip. Clothes hung in the closet, toys found homes on shelves, and family photos appeared on the dresser Ethan had retrieved from his garage. By mid-afternoon, the walls gleamed with fresh paint, thanks to their collective effort. Even the girls had helped, though more paint ended up on their clothes than the walls. Ethan assembled the twin bed he'd stored away years ago, while Kara arranged clean sheets and the colorful quilt she'd brought from their old apartment. "Look, Hope," Kara said, setting up a small lamp on the bedside table. "Just like your nightlight at home." Hope touched the lamp's base gently. "Can Lily sleep here too?" The adults exchanged glances. "Maybe for a sleepover sometime," Kara suggested carefully. "But tonight, you'll sleep here with me, and Lily has her own room." Ethan watched the girls explore the space together, their small hands touching everything, creating immediate memories. The room already felt different, warmer, lived in, filled with possibility. As evening approached, delicious smells wafted from the kitchen. Kara had insisted on cooking, saying it was the least she could do. Ethan sat in the living room with the girls, an old copy of Where the Wild Things Are open on his lap. "The wild things roared their terrible roars," he read, making growling noises that sent both girls into fits of giggles. Hope had gradually settled closer to him throughout the story until she was practically tucked under his arm, just like Lily. "Dinner's ready," Kara called from the kitchen. The table was set with mismatched plates, Ethan's plain ones mixed with the cheerful floral pattern Kara had brought. Somehow, the combination worked. Steam rose from a casserole dish filled with mac and cheese, while a bowl of fresh salad added color to the spread. "This looks amazing," Ethan said, helping Lily into her booster seat, while Kara did the same for Hope. "It's just something simple," Kara replied, but her cheeks flushed at the compliment. They fell into an easy rhythm during dinner. Kara knew exactly how to cut Hope's food into perfect bite-sized pieces, while Ethan automatically caught Lily's cup before it could tip over. The girls chattered about their plans for sharing toys and having tea parties, their excitement making the adults smile. After dinner and baths, they all gathered in the living room. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd seen so many people in pajamas in his house. Lily wore her favorite princess nightgown, while Hope had on purple pajamas covered in stars. Kara looked softer somehow in her oversized sweater and plaid pants, her usual polish replaced by comfortable authenticity. Ethan found himself relaxing into the corner of the couch as cartoons played on the TV. Hope and Lily sprawled on their stomachs on the floor, occasionally giggling at the screen. Kara sat at the other end of the couch, her feet tucked under her, looking more at peace than he'd seen her since they'd met. The house felt different, fuller, warmer, more complete. The usual evening silence was replaced by the gentle soundtrack of family, cartoon music, children's laughter, the soft rustle of blankets being shared. Even the air seemed changed, carrying the lingering scent of home-cooked food and the fresh paint that marked new beginnings. As Ethan watched Hope's eyes grow heavy, matching the sleepy droop of Lily's head, he felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just his house anymore, with its empty spaces and quiet corners. For the first time since Marianne, it felt like a home again, alive with possibility, warm with shared breaths and intertwined stories. Kara caught his eye across the couch and smiled softly, as if she understood exactly what he was thinking. Together, they watched their daughters drift closer to sleep, their small bodies curled toward each other like puppies in a basket, while cartoon characters danced quietly across the screen. Golden leaves danced in the autumn breeze as families streamed through the entrance of Walker County's annual fall festival. The air smelled of caramel apples and wood smoke, mixing with the excited squeals of children and the cheerful music from the carousel. Ethan held Lily's small hand, while Kara guided Hope through the growing crowd. Both girls wore matching fall dresses, rust-colored corduroy with white tights, a surprise Kara had presented that morning. Ponies! Look, Hope! Lily pointed to a fenced area where several gentle horses plodded in circles, young riders perched on their backs. Hope's eyes grew wide with wonder. Can we, Kara, please? Hope tugged at Kara's sleeve, bouncing on her toes. Of course, sweetie. Kara smiled, pulling out her wallet, but Ethan was already heading to the ticket booth. I got this one, he called over his shoulder. While they waited in line, Ethan couldn't help noticing how natural it felt, the four of them together like this. Kara helped both girls pet the horses' soft noses, showing them how to hold their palms flat with carrot pieces. Her patience, the gentle way she explained things to them, made his heart ache in a way he hadn't expected. Up you go, princess. The teenage handler lifted Lily onto a dappled pony named Cookie. Hope followed on a white horse called Sugar. Both girls beamed with pride as they gripped the saddle horns. Wave to Daddy and Kara, the handler encouraged, and both girls did, giggling as their ponies plodded along. Ethan raised his phone to take pictures, but Kara stopped him. Here, let me get one of you with them. She snapped several photos as Ethan walked alongside the horses, one hand on each girl's back for security. Your turn, he said when the ride ended, taking the phone from her. Kara's smile lit up her whole face as she helped the girls dismount, hugging them both. They wandered through the festival grounds, stopping for cotton candy that left sticky blue fingerprints everywhere. Hope won a small stuffed penguin at the ring toss, while Lily scored a purple unicorn at the duck pond. Both girls clutched their prizes proudly. Look, a photo booth. Kara pointed to an old-fashioned booth decorated with autumn, leaves, and twinkling lights. Should we? Yes, both girls shouted, already running toward it. They squeezed inside, shoulders touching in the tight space. Lily settled on Ethan's lap while Hope perched on Kara's. The first flash caught them by surprise, producing genuine laughter that carried through the next 3 shots. These are perfect, Kara said softly as they examined the strip of photos. The last one captured a moment of pure joy, all 4 of them mid-laugh, faces close together, looking for all the world like any other happy family. Can we get ice cream? Lily asked, pointing to a vendor selling pumpkin-shaped waffle cones. Well, isn't this cozy? The harsh voice cut through their happiness like a knife. Kara stiffened beside Ethan, her hand instinctively tightening on Hope's shoulder. A tall man with steel-gray hair and expensive clothes stood before them, his mouth twisted in a sneer. Ethan recognized the cold eyes and rigid posture from the few photos Kara had shown him her father, Richard Langston. Dad, Kara's voice was barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? Supporting local business? Of course. Though I must say, this isn't the sort of scene I expected to find my daughter participating in. His gaze swept over Ethan's worn jeans and the girls' sticky faces with obvious distaste. Mr. Langston. Ethan started to extend his hand, but the older man ignored it. Kara, a word? It wasn't a request. Richard stepped aside, clearly expecting his daughter to follow. Kara squeezed Hope's shoulder again. Stay with Ethan, sweetie. I'll be right back. Ethan distracted the girls with ice cream while keeping one eye on Kara and her father. Even from a distance, their conversation looked intense. Richard's face grew increasingly red while Kara's shoulders hunched forward defensively. Finally, Kara walked back, her face pale but composed. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked quietly. She nodded stiffly. "Can we go home?" The drive back was silent except for the girls' sleepy chatter in the back seat. By the time they pulled into the driveway, both children were asleep, still clutching their stuffed animals. Ethan carried Lily while Kara gathered Hope, each parent putting their respective daughter to bed. When they met in the kitchen afterward, Kara's careful composure crumbled. He said, "I'm making the biggest mistake of my life," she whispered, hands gripping the edge of the counter. "That I'm fooling myself if I think this can work. That her voice broke, that I'm trying to play house with someone else's life." The words hit Ethan like physical blows. He moved closer, close enough to catch her if she fell, but not quite touching. He said Hope deserves better than some. Kara's shoulders began to shake. "Some mechanic's charity case." The last words came out in a sob. Ethan didn't speak. Instead, he simply opened his arms, and Kara turned into them, crying silently against his chest. He held her carefully, one hand making slow circles on her back while she released years of hurt and disappointment. The photo strip from earlier had fallen from her pocket onto the kitchen floor. In the dim light, 4 smiling faces looked up at them, a snapshot of possibility, of what could be if they were brave enough to try, despite everyone else's doubts and judgments. They stood like that for a long time, the only sound in the kitchen, Kara's gradually steadying breaths and the soft tick of the clock on the wall. Ethan continued his gentle circles on her back, offering the only comfort he knew how to give: steady presence and silent support. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as Ethan flipped pancakes, his movements practiced and smooth. The sizzle of butter on the griddle mingled with the sound of cartoons from the living room, where the girls sat in their matching unicorn pajamas. "Who wants chocolate chip?" he called out, already knowing the answer. "Me! Me!" 2 little voices chimed in unison, followed by the patter of small feet racing to the kitchen. Kara appeared in the doorway, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, clutching her coffee mug. "You're spoiling them," she said with a smile that reached her tired eyes. "It's Saturday," Ethan replied, adding extra chips to Hope's stack. Saturday is for spoiling. Life had fallen into an unexpected but comfortable pattern over the past few weeks. Their makeshift family moved through their days with growing ease, each person finding their place in their shared routines. Later that afternoon, Ethan wheeled out 2 bikes from the garage, Lily's pink one and a smaller blue one he'd fixed up for Hope. The training wheels gleamed in the sunlight, freshly attached and double-checked for safety. "Ready, sweetie?" he asked Hope, who stood nervously by the driveway. She nodded, her small hands gripping the handlebar grips too tightly. Ethan adjusted her helmet, checking the straps with gentle fingers. "I'm scared," Hope whispered. "That's okay," Ethan said, kneeling beside her. "Being scared just means you're about to do something brave." Lily, already pedaling circles nearby, called out, "It's easy, Hope. Daddy taught me last summer." For the next hour, Ethan jogged alongside Hope's wobbly progress, one hand steady on the back of her seat. Her initial fear gave way to determination, then joy, as she began to get the hang of it. Her giggles echoed down the quiet street. "You're doing it," Ethan encouraged, slowly letting go for longer stretches. From the front porch, Kara watched them, her heart full. This was the childhood she'd always wanted for Hope. Safe, supported, loved. The days flowed one into another. Kara discovered Lily struggling with reading during homework time and began setting aside special moments after dinner for story practice. They curled up in the oversized armchair, Lily sounding out words while Kara offered gentle corrections. The cat sat on the Lily, worked through each word carefully. "That's it," Kara praised. "You're getting better every day." Nighttime brought its own challenges. Both girls still had occasional bad dreams, calling out in the dark. They developed a system. Whoever heard the cry first would respond, no questions asked. Some nights, Ethan would find Kara already there, humming softly to a frightened Hope. Other nights, Kara would pass by Hope's room to see Ethan reading quietly beside her bed, his deep voice a comfort in the darkness. One Wednesday afternoon, Kara's old Honda made an ominous grinding sound on her way home from grocery shopping. She managed to limp it into the driveway, worry creasing her forehead as she calculated the potential cost of repairs. "Let me take a look," Ethan offered after dinner, grabbing his toolbox. "You don't have to," Kara protested. "You're tired from work." But Ethan was already heading to the garage. "It's what I do," he said simply. He spent the next few evenings working on her car after the girls were in bed. Kara would bring him cold drinks, watching as his capable hands diagnosed and fixed the problem. When he finally closed the hood and handed her the keys, she reached for her wallet. "How much do I owe you?" Ethan shook his head. "Family discount?" he said with a small smile. "It's free." The moment hung between them, warm and meaningful, before Kara ducked her head and whispered, "Thank you." It was during a regular Thursday evening when everything shifted. Hope was helping Ethan water the small garden they'd started in the backyard, carefully holding the watering can with both hands. She tipped it over the tomato plants, just as he'd shown her. "Did I do it right, Daddy?" The word fell from her lips naturally, unconsciously, but it stopped Ethan in his tracks. Hope looked up at him, suddenly uncertain at his silence. "Sorry," she whispered, lowering the watering can. "I didn't mean." Ethan dropped to his knees in the damp grass and gathered her in his arms. "No, sweetheart," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. "You can call me that anytime you want. I'd love to be your daddy." Hope's small arms wrapped around his neck, and she buried her face in his shoulder. They stayed like that for a long moment, the garden hose forgotten, creating a puddle at their feet. Neither noticed Kara standing in the hallway by the back door, one hand pressed to her mouth, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She watched as her daughter, their daughter, melted into Ethan's embrace and felt something deep in her heart shift and settle into place. The waterfall of tears surprised her. They weren't sad tears, exactly, but they weren't purely happy ones either. They were complicated tears, full of gratitude and fear and hope, and a dozen other emotions she couldn't name. She wiped them away quickly when Hope and Ethan finally separated, not wanting to intrude on their moment. That night, after the girls were asleep, Kara sat on the back porch steps, looking up at the stars. The screen door creaked behind her as Ethan joined her, offering a cup of tea. "Thank you," she said softly, accepting both the tea and his presence. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the crickets and distant traffic, each lost in thoughts about the family they were becoming, one small moment at a time. Kara was organizing the hall closet when she found the box. It was weathered cardboard, unlabeled except for a small cross drawn in the corner. She probably should have left it alone, but as she moved it, the lid slipped off, revealing a stack of composition notebooks. The top one fell open to a page dated 3 years ago. Kara recognized Ethan's careful handwriting, slanted and precise like a mechanic's diagrams. Her eyes caught Marianne's name, and her heart stuttered. "Dear Marianne," the entry began. "Lily took her first steps today. She wobbled across the living room floor, arms spread wide like a tiny tightrope walker. I wanted to call you so badly, to hear your laugh, to share this moment. Instead, I'm writing it down, hoping somehow you know." Kara's hands trembled. She shouldn't be reading this. These were private thoughts, sacred conversations between a grieving husband and his departed wife. But something held her there, cross-legged on the closet floor, the notebook heavy in her lap. "I failed you," another entry read. "The rent's late again. Lily needs new shoes. I'm working doubles at the shop, but it never seems enough. You would have known what to do. You always did. I pray every night for guidance, for strength, for some sign that I'm not messing everything up. Sometimes I think I hear your voice in my dreams, telling me it's going to be okay. But when I wake up, the silence is so loud." Tears blurred Kara's vision. She thought of Ethan in those early days, alone with a newborn, drowning in grief and responsibility. The entry continued, "Pastor Mike says God has a plan, that you're watching, over us. I want to believe that. But tonight, when Lily was crying with an ear infection and I couldn't make it better, I felt so lost. Remember how you used to sing to her before she was born? I tried humming that lullaby you loved, but I kept getting the tune wrong. I miss your voice. I miss your smile. I miss the way you made everything make sense." Kara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She could picture Ethan writing these words late at night, after Lily was finally asleep, pouring his heart onto paper because he had nowhere else to put his pain. "The thing that scares me most," she read from a more recent entry, "is that Lily won't remember you. She's starting to ask questions about Mommy. I show her your pictures, tell her stories, but how do I explain the way you lit up a room? How do you describe sunshine to someone who's never felt its warmth?" Footsteps in the hallway made Kara jump. She quickly returned the notebook to its box, her heart pounding, but Ethan had already rounded the corner. "Hey," he said, then noticed her red eyes. "Everything okay?" Kara nodded, unable to speak. Ethan's gaze fell to the box, and understanding crossed his face. He didn't look angry, just vulnerable in a way that made her chest ache. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have." "It's okay," he said softly. "They helped me stay sane, those notebooks." Talking to her, even if she couldn't answer back. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Kara sat at the kitchen table with a notepad. The words came slowly at first, then faster. "Dear Ethan, I found your letters today. I saw your heart, your struggles, your unwavering love for Lily. You didn't fail, Marianne. You've honored her every single day by being the father she knew you could be. The way you love our girls, how you put them first, how you face each challenge with quiet strength, it's beautiful to witness. Thank you for letting us into your life, for showing me what real family looks like. Kara." She slipped the note into his lunch bag for the next day. The following evening, she found his response tucked under her pillow. "Thank you for understanding, for seeing me, even the messy parts, for giving Hope the love she deserves, for making this house feel like home again." Their note exchanges continued. Small messages appeared in coffee mugs, between pages of books, tucked into jacket pockets. Sometimes they were simple. "Don't forget dance class at 4. Other times, they shared deeper thoughts. "Watched you teaching Hope to tie her shoes today. My heart feels full." One afternoon, while Kara was preparing dinner, she heard giggling from the living room. Hope and Lily came running in, clutching one of the notes they'd found behind the cookie jar. "Miss Kara!" Lily bounced on her toes. "Daddy wrote that he likes your smile. Are you going to get married?" Hope clapped her hands. "Can we be flower girls?" Ethan chose that moment to walk in from the garage, still in his work. Clothes! He froze when he saw the note in the girl's hands, a blush creeping up his neck. Kara felt her own face grow warm. "Girls, that's private." Ethan finished, but he was fighting a smile. "Some things are just for grown-ups to read." "But Daddy," Lily persisted, "you told me people who write nice notes to each other are in love, like in my princess books." Ethan's laugh came out slightly strangled. His eyes met Kara's across the kitchen, and something electric passed between them. She quickly turned back to the stove, her heart racing. "Time to wash up for dinner," she managed to say, her voice only slightly shaky. The girls ran off, still giggling and planning their imaginary wedding. Ethan cleared his throat. "Kids," he said weakly. "They get ideas in their heads." "Right," Kara agreed quickly. "Silly ideas." But later, as they sat around the dinner table, watching the girls share secret smiles, Kara caught Ethan stealing glances at her. Each time their eyes met, she felt that same spark, that same skip in her heartbeat that she wasn't ready to name. She wondered if he was thinking about the letters too, not just the ones they'd been leaving for each other, but the ones he'd written to Marianne, about finding love again, about building something new from the ashes of loss. The girls launched into a detailed discussion about what colors they would pick for their flower girl dresses. Ethan just shook his head, that gentle half-smile playing on his lips, and Kara found herself fighting the urge to reach across the table and take his hand. Thunder rumbled through the darkening sky as Ethan finished drying the last dinner plate. The kitchen lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the house into complete darkness. Lily's frightened squeal pierced the sudden quiet. "It's okay, sweetie," Ethan called out, fumbling in the drawer for the flashlight he kept for emergencies. "Just a power outage. I don't like the dark." Hope's voice trembled from catter. "The living room. Hold on, girls." Kara's calm voice carried through the darkness. "I know exactly what we need." The beam of Ethan's flashlight caught Kara returning from her room, arms full of vanilla-scented candles. She placed them carefully around the living room while Ethan followed with his lighter, creating a warm golden glow. The girls huddled together on the couch, their worried faces softening in the gentle light. "This is kind of cozy," Lily decided, pulling a throw blanket around her shoulders. Thunder crashed again, closer this time. Hope jumped and scrambled onto Kara's lap as she settled onto the couch. "Can we sing something?" Hope asked in a small voice. "Of course," Kara said, smoothing Hope's hair. "What would you like to sing?" "The Star Song," Hope said. "The one about the little light." Ethan's breath caught. He knew exactly which song Hope meant. It was the lullaby Marianne used to sing. He'd sung it to Lily when she was tiny, though not for years now. Kara's voice was soft and sweet as she began, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." But she didn't sing it like the usual nursery rhyme. She sang it slower, gentler, with the same slight variation in melody that Marianne had always used. The familiar tune wrapped around Ethan's heart like a warm embrace. Lily joined in, then Hope, their small voices harmonizing in the candlelit room. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off Kara. The flickering light cast soft shadows across her face, and for a moment the resemblance to Marianne was overwhelming. But then Kara smiled, her own unique, gentle smile, and the spell broke. She was simply Kara, and somehow that was even more beautiful. The storm raged on outside, but inside their little circle of candlelight, they were safe and warm. They sang other songs, told stories, and played shadow puppets on the wall until both girls began to yawn. "I think it's bedtime," Kara said, noticing Hope's heavy eyelids. "But it's dark upstairs," Lily protested, weakly, even as she rubbed her eyes. "We'll bring candles," Ethan assured her. "Come on, princess." They carried the girls upstairs, setting up candles safely out of reach. Within minutes, both Hope and Lily were sound asleep, the storm no longer a concern. Back downstairs, Ethan and Kara sat on opposite ends of the couch, the candles still flickering between them. The silence felt comfortable, intimate even, broken only by the steady drumming of rain against the windows. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for singing that song. I haven't heard it since Marianne," Kara finished. "She used to sing it to me too, when things got hard. After my engagement ended, I stayed with her for a while. She'd make tea and sing that song, and somehow everything felt manageable again." Kara pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "Sometimes I feel so alone, even now. Like I'm playing pretend at being a mother, at having a normal life. Hope deserves so much more than what I can give her." "Hey," Ethan said softly, sliding closer on the couch. "You're an amazing mother. Hope adores you. But what if I mess up? What if I can't protect her from all the hurt in the world?" Kara's voice cracked. "My own family is such a mess. What if that's all I know how to create?" Ethan reached out hesitantly, then took Kara's hand in his. Her fingers were cold, and she gripped back tightly. "You want to know something?" he said. "Every single day, I'm terrified. I'm going to fail Lily. After Marianne died, I was so lost. Some days I could barely get out of bed, but Lily needed me. I had to keep going, even though I felt like I was doing everything wrong." "You're not doing anything wrong," Kara whispered. "You're an incredible father. So are you. An incredible mother, I mean." Ethan's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. "Maybe we're both just doing our best, and maybe that's enough." A particularly loud crack of thunder made them both jump, but neither let go of the other's hand. The candles had burned lower, casting their faces in soft shadow. "Can I tell you something?" Kara asked, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, panicking that I'm going to lose hope, that someone will decide I'm not good enough, or that I don't have any right to be her mother." "That won't happen," Ethan said firmly. "You're her mother in every way that matters. And you're not alone anymore, Kara. You have me. Us. We're in this together now." Tears spilled down Kara's cheeks, glinting in the candlelight. Without thinking, Ethan reached up with his free hand and brushed them away. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. Their eyes met in the dim light, and something unspoken passed between them, understanding, comfort, possibility. They sat like that for a long time, hands clasped, sharing their fears and hopes in whispered voices as the storm gradually moved away. When Kara finally dozed off, her head had drifted to rest on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move, didn't want to break this moment of peace they'd found in the darkness. Instead, he listened to the soft sound of her breathing mixing with the distant thunder, and for the first time in years, he felt completely at home. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window as Kara stirred pancake batter, humming softly. Hope and Lily sat at the small table, coloring pictures of butterflies and rainbows. Ethan had just left for work at the auto shop, promising to bring home ice cream for dessert. Kara's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen, her face falling as she recognized her lawyer's number. "Hello?" She turned down the heat under the griddle, moving toward the living room. "Yes, this is Kara Langston." The girls continued coloring, oblivious to the way their mother's hands began to shake. Kara sank onto the couch, her voice barely a whisper. "When did she file?" Kara pressed her fingers against her temple. "Emergency custody? On what grounds?" The pancake batter sat forgotten as Kara listened, her face growing paler by the second. Hope looked up from her drawing, sensing something wrong. "Mama?" she called softly. Kara held up one finger, trying to focus on her lawyer's words. "Rebecca can't do this. She's never even met Hope. Yes, I understand she's Marianne's sister, but—" Her voice cracked. "What do you mean, financially unstable environment?" The words hit her like physical blows. Rebecca, Marianne's sister, was claiming Kara was an unfit mother. That living with Ethan created an unstable environment. That Hope deserved better than a cramped rental house with a struggling mechanic and his daughter. "I'll call you back," Kara managed, ending the call. She stared at the phone in her trembling hands. "Mama, the pancakes are burning," Hope said, wrinkling her nose at the smell of smoke. Kara jumped up, rushing to turn off the stove. But instead of salvaging breakfast, she gripped the counter's edge, trying to steady her breathing. The walls of the small kitchen seemed to close in around her. "Girls, go play in your room for a bit," she said, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "I need to make a phone call." Once they were gone, Kara dialed Ethan's number with shaking fingers. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Of course, he was under a car somewhere, hands covered in grease, unable to answer. "Ethan," she whispered into the phone, "please come home. Rebecca. She's filing for emergency custody of Hope. She's saying we're unfit parents. She's going to take her away." Kara ended the call and ran to the bedroom she shared with Hope. She yanked their suitcase from under the bed and began throwing clothes inside, moving on autopilot. Tears blurred her vision as she packed Hope's favorite stuffed elephant, her winter coat, her tiny shoes. The front door burst open 20 minutes later. "Kara?" Ethan's voice called out, panicked. He found her in the bedroom, still packing. "What are you doing?" he asked, taking in the mess of clothes and the half-filled suitcase. "We have to leave," Kara said, not meeting his eyes. "Rebecca has money, connections. She'll win." "Stop." Ethan stepped forward, placing his hand over hers as she tried to fold another shirt. "Just stop for a minute. You don't understand." Kara pulled away, her voice rising. "She's already filed the paperwork. She's calling me unfit, saying this environment isn't stable enough for Hope." She gestured around the modest room. "And maybe she's right. Look at us, Ethan. 4 people crammed into this tiny house, you working 2 jobs just to make rent. That doesn't mean we're unfit parents," Ethan said firmly. "Hope is happy here. She's thriving. It won't matter to the courts." Kara grabbed more clothes from the dresser. "Rebecca can hire the best lawyers in the state. She'll paint me as an unstable single mother who moved in with a man she barely knows. She'll say I'm putting Hope at risk." "Running isn't the answer," Ethan pleaded. "If you leave now, it'll only make things worse." "Worse than losing her?" Kara whirled to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't watch them take her away, Ethan. I won't let them separate her from Lily, from you, from us." "Then we fight," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Together." "We can't win." Kara's voice broke. "Rebecca will destroy us in court. She'll use your financial struggles against you, my history of moving around, everything. She'll make it look like we're playing house while Hope suffers." From the doorway came a small voice. "Mama, why are you crying?" They turned to see Hope standing there, clutching her stuffed elephant. Lily stood behind her, eyes wide with worry. Kara quickly wiped her eyes. "Everything's fine, sweetie. Go back to playing." But Hope moved forward instead, wrapping her arms around Kara's legs. "Don't cry, Mama. Daddy will fix it. He fixes everything." The simple, faith in her daughter's voice made Kara's knees buckle. She sank to the floor, pulling Hope into her arms. Ethan knelt beside them, one hand on Kara's shoulder. "Please don't run," he whispered. "We'll find a way, I promise." Kara looked at Hope's innocent face, then at Lily hovering uncertainly in the doorway. The thought of tearing these sisters apart, of destroying the family they'd built, made her chest ache. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I know," Ethan squeezed her shoulder, "but running will only prove Rebecca right. Stay. Let me help you fight this." Kara buried her face in Hope's hair, breathing in the sweet smell of her daughter's strawberry shampoo. The suitcase lay open on the bed, a testament to her panic. But Hope's arms around her neck anchored her to the spot, making it impossible to move. "What if we lose?" she whispered. "Then we lose together," Ethan said firmly. "But at least we'll know we did everything we could to keep our family whole." Lily crept forward, joining their huddle on the floor. "Are we still having pancakes?" she asked hopefully, making Hope giggle despite the tension. Kara looked at their little group, hope in her arms, Lily pressed against her side, Ethan's steady presence behind her. The urge to run still pulsed through her veins, but something stronger held her in place. Love, hope, and the desperate need to protect what they'd built together. "The pancakes are burnt," she said softly. "But we can make more." The screen door creaked open as Miss creaked. Edna made her way onto the front porch, carrying a worn leather bag and a Tupperware container of her famous peach cobbler. Her silver hair caught the morning light as she found Ethan slumped in the old rocking chair, his work clothes still on from his morning shift. "Child, you look like you haven't slept a wink," she said, setting down her things. "Where's Kara?" "Inside, packing." Ethan's voice was hollow. "She won't listen to reason, Miss Edna. Says, there's no point fighting." Miss Edna's eyes narrowed. "Well then, it's a good thing I came by. Let's go inside and have a proper talk." In the kitchen, Kara was folding Hope's tiny shirts with trembling hands while the girls played in the backyard. When she saw Miss Edna, her eyes welled up with tears. "Now sit down, both of you," Miss Edna commanded, pulling out kitchen chairs. "And tell me everything." For the next hour, they laid out the whole story, the custody filing, the accusations, the fear. Miss Edna listened intently, occasionally jotting notes in a small notebook she pulled from her bag. "Marianne's sister has money," Kara said, wringing her hands. "She has connections." "We can't—" "Stop right there," Miss Edna interrupted, holding up one hand. "What you two don't know is that before I retired, I spent 30 years as a family court judge." Ethan and Kara exchanged shocked looks. "And I still have plenty of friends in family law who owe me favors." Miss Edna's eyes twinkled. "But more importantly, I know this community, and this community knows you both." She turned to Ethan. "How many cars have you fixed for free when folks couldn't pay? How many veterans have you helped with their vehicles when their benefits were delayed?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what was right." "And you, Kara?" "Miss," Edna continued, "I've seen you volunteering at the library's reading program. I've watched you help other single mothers with their groceries at the store. This town notices these things." She pulled out her phone. "What you need is to tell your story. Show the court that this makeshift family you've created isn't just legal papers, it's real love." "But how?" Kara asked. "Social media," Miss Edna replied. "Start with the town's Facebook group. Tell your truth, Ethan. Let people know what's happening." Ethan ran his hands through his hair. "I'm not good with words." "Just speak from your heart," Miss Edna encouraged. "Tell them about these girls, about this family you're building." That evening, after the girls were asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with his old laptop. Kara had stopped packing, watching nervously from the doorway as he began to type. "Dear friends and neighbors, some of you know me as the mechanic at Wilson's Auto. Others might remember me as the widower raising his little girl alone. Tonight, I'm writing to ask for your help. A few weeks ago, God brought two amazing people into our lives, Kara and her daughter Hope. What we discovered next sounds like something from a movie. Hope is actually my biological daughter, conceived through IVF before my late wife Marianne passed away. Since then, we've been building something beautiful. Our girls are sisters in every way that matters. Kara is the most dedicated mother I've ever met. We're not perfect, but we're family. Now, someone wants to tear that apart. They're trying to take Hope away, saying we're unfit parents because we're not wealthy or connected. But I believe love and stability matter more than money. If any of you have seen us at the park, at church, or around town, if I've ever helped you with your car, or if Kara has taught your children at the library, we're asking for your support. Just a few words about what you know of us could make all the difference. Thank you, Ethan Morales." He hit post before he could second-guess himself. Miss Edna squeezed his shoulder. "Now we wait." They didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, the post had dozens of shares. By midnight, hundreds of comments filled the thread. "Ethan fixed my car for free when I lost my job last year. He wouldn't take a dime, just asked me to pay it forward. Kara helped my son learn to read when everyone else had given up. She's got the biggest heart. I see them at the park every weekend. Those little girls are so happy together." The next morning, Ethan's email inbox was flooded. Former customers wrote detailed letters about his character. Veterans shared stories of his generosity. His old high school teacher sent a 3-page letter about his determination to finish school while working 2 jobs after his parents died. The town's pastor wrote about watching Ethan grieve Marianne with dignity and raise Lily with gentle patience. The librarian detailed Kara's dedication to helping struggling readers. Even the grocery store manager wrote about how they both helped elderly customers carry bags to their cars. Miss? Edna arrived with breakfast, beaming as she scrolled through the responses. This, my dears, is community. This is what family court judges need to see, not just bank statements, but character references from people who know you. Kara, who had been reading the comments with tears streaming down her face, finally smiled. I never knew. I always felt so alone. You're not alone anymore, miss, Edna said firmly. Neither of you are. Now, stop that packing and let me make some calls. We've got work to do. The courthouse loomed. Ahead, its stone steps weathered by time and footsteps. Kara sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's truck, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Her hands trembled as she clutched a manila folder filled with documents. I can't, she whispered, her voice breaking. I can't breathe, Ethan. Ethan reached across the console and took her hand. Focus on my voice, he said softly. Remember what Dr. Mitchell taught you. 5 things you can see. Kara's eyes darted around, her grip on his hand tight. The steering wheel, she started, her voice shaky. The dashboard, my black shoes. The folder, your work shirt. Good, 4 things you can touch. She ran her free hand over different surfaces. The leather seat, my silk blouse. The cool window, your warm hand. As she continued the grounding exercise, her breathing slowly steadied. Ethan watched her with gentle patience, the same way he did during her midnight panic attacks over the past week. The dark circles under both their eyes told the story of sleepless nights spent preparing, praying, and comforting each other. The hearing isn't until tomorrow, he reminded her. We're just here to meet with Miss Edna's lawyer friend today. 1 step at a time, okay? Kara nodded, wiping away a stray tear. The girls' drawings, did you bring them? Right here. Ethan reached into his back pocket and pulled out 2 carefully folded pieces of construction paper. He smoothed them out on the dashboard. Hope and Lily had worked on their masterpieces for hours yesterday. Tongues stuck out in concentration as they drew. 4 stick figures held hands across both pages. 1 tall figure labeled Daddy, another labeled Mommy Kara, and 2 smaller ones representing the girls. Hearts and flowers decorated the borders, along with wobbly letters spelling Our Family at the top. Miss Edna says judges sometimes look at children's drawings, Kara said, touching the crayon marks gently, to understand how they see their family situation. They made their way inside the courthouse, where the prayer group from First Baptist was already waiting. Mrs. Henderson, who taught Sunday school, rushed forward to embrace Kara. We've been praying non-stop, dear, she said, her kind face etched with concern. The small group formed a circle right there in the courthouse lobby, holding hands. Pastor Mike's deep voice led them in prayer, asking for strength, wisdom, and protection for their little family. Kara's shoulders relaxed slightly as the familiar words washed over her. Later that evening, after meeting with the lawyer and going over their strategy, Ethan stood in front of his bathroom mirror. His tie hung loose around his neck, and his dress shirt was wrinkled from nervous fidgeting. I am a good father, he practiced, his voice trembling slightly. I work hard. I provide for my family. I love both my daughters equally and unconditionally. His reflection stared back at him, uncertain. He adjusted his tie for the 100th time. Your Honor, he started again. I didn't know about Hope's existence until recently, but from the moment I learned about her, I've done everything in my power to be the father she deserves. The father both my girls deserve. A small noise made him turn. Lily stood in the doorway in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant. Daddy? She asked sleepily. Are you talking to yourself? Ethan managed a smile and scooped her up. Just practicing for tomorrow, princess. Did you say your prayers? Lily nodded against his shoulder. I asked Jesus to let Hope and Kara stay forever, and to make the judge nice. Those are good prayers, baby. His voice caught in his throat. He carried her back to her room, where Hope was already asleep in the twin bed they'd pushed next to Lily's. The girls had refused to sleep separately since learning about the custody battle, as if afraid they'd be separated in the night. In the hallway, he found Kara sitting on the floor, knees pulled up to her chest. She was reading Marianne's last letter again, the paper worn from frequent handling. She knew, Kara whispered as Ethan sat down beside her. Somehow Marianne knew we'd all end up here. Listen to this part again. Love finds its way through the darkest valleys, through the most impossible circumstances. Trust in that love, Ethan. It will guide you home." Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into him. They sat there in silence, drawing strength from each other's presence, while the girl's soft breathing drifted from the bedroom. "I keep having this nightmare," Kara admitted quietly, "where they take Hope away, and she's crying for me, but I can't reach her. I wake up feeling like my heart's being ripped out." "That's not going to happen," Ethan said firmly, though his own hands shook. "Miss, Edna's friend says we have a strong case. The community support letters, the stable home environment, the girl's obvious bond, it all matters. But your financial event is improving. That is improving," he finished. "The auto shop's doing better since word got out about our story. People are choosing us deliberately now, wanting to help. And you're still employed at the daycare. We're not rich, but we're making it work." Kara pulled out her phone and pulled up the community Facebook post Ethan had made. The comments section had exploded with support, former clients sharing stories of Ethan's kindness, neighbors offering character references, local businesses pledging their support. "Remember what Pastor Mike said?" Ethan continued softly. "Sometimes God puts us through trials not to break us, but to show us how many people are willing to hold us up when we fall." Kara closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I'm so scared, Ethan. I can't lose her. I can't lose this family we're building." "Then we fight," he said, his voice growing stronger. "Together. For both our girls. For the family we all deserve." He stood up and pulled Kara to her feet. "Come on, we need to try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." As they parted ways at their bedroom doors, Kara caught his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being my strength when I feel weak." "That's what family does," Ethan replied simply, squeezing her hand before letting go. In his room, he laid out his court clothes one more time, smoothing every wrinkle. The girl's drawing sat on his nightstand, those 4 simple stick figures holding hands across the paper. Tomorrow, they would find out if their makeshift family could stay together, if love really could find its way through the darkest valleys. Ethan knelt beside his bed, folded his hands, and began to pray. The courtroom's polished wooden benches creaked as people shifted nervously. Morning light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Ethan sat rigid beside Kara, his Sunday suit feeling too tight around his neck. Miss Edna, their retired judge turned guardian angel, sat directly. Behind them, her presence, steady and reassuring. At the plaintiff's table, Rebecca Thompson, Marianne's sister, sat with perfect posture in her designer suit, her expression cold and determined. Her expensive lawyer shuffled papers with practiced efficiency, occasionally whispering in her ear. Judge Harrison, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, called the court to order. The bang of her gavel made Kara flinch. Ethan squeezed her hand under the table. Rebecca's lawyer, Mr. Phillips, rose first. His shoes clicked against the floor as he approached the bench. "Your Honor, this case is about protecting a child from an unstable environment." His voice dripped with rehearsed concern. "Miss S.A. Langston, while well-meaning, has created chaos in young Hope's life by moving in with Mr. Morales, a virtual stranger, and exposing both children to confusion and emotional turmoil." Ethan's jaw clenched. He watched Rebecca nod along, her face a mask of manufactured worry. "Mr. Morales," Phillips continued, "is 2 months behind on rent, works irregular hours, and has no formal custody agreement. Miss Langston's decision to involve him shows poor judgment that puts Hope at risk." Their own lawyer, Sarah Chin, found through Miss Edna's connections, stood next. "Your Honor, this case is about family, healing, and what's truly best for Hope. We'll show that Kara Langston has provided a loving, stable home, and that Ethan Morales is Hope's biological father with a natural right to know his daughter." Rebecca's testimony came first. She painted a picture of Kara as impulsive and emotional, questioning her ability to make sound decisions. "She was engaged to me," Rebecca said, her voice tight. "Then she suddenly adopted Hope without consulting anyone. Now she's living with my dead sister's husband? It shows a pattern of erratic behavior." Kara's fingers dug into Ethan's palm. He could feel her trembling. Mr. Phillips called character witnesses Rebecca's, friends who spoke about seeing Hope at the grocery store, looking unkempt and tired. Each statement felt like a carefully aimed arrow. When it was Ethan's turn to testify, his legs felt wooden as he approached the stand. The oath seemed to echo in the quiet courtroom. "Mr. Phillips stood, adjusting his tie. "Mr. Morales," he began. Isn't it true that you're currently facing eviction? Ethan swallowed hard. I've fallen behind on rent. Yes, the auto repair business has been slow, but And you thought this was a good time to take on another child? Hope is my daughter, Ethan said, his voice growing stronger. I didn't know she existed until recently, but that doesn't make her any less mine. So you admit you had no relationship with this child for 4 years? Because I didn't know about her. Emotion cracked through Ethan's voice. My wife Marianne and I created those embryos out of love, hoping for a family. We lost her before. He paused, collecting himself. Before? We could use them. And now you're living with Miss Langston, correct? Moving rather quickly, wouldn't you say? Ethan shook his head. This isn't about romance. It's about two people putting children first. About healing. Healing? Phillips raised an eyebrow. Or replacing your dead wife with her look-alike? Objection. Sarah Chin stood sharply. Sustained, Judge Harrison said firmly. Mr. Phillips, watch your tone. Ethan gripped the stand's wooden rail. I love my wife, he said, tears welling in his eyes. I lost her, and I lost myself for a while. But finding hope, his voice broke. She's not a replacement for anything. She's a gift, a miracle. When she called me daddy for the first time, it was like he wiped his eyes. Like Marianne was telling me, it was okay to love again, to be a father again. The courtroom fell silent. Even Rebecca looked down at her hands. My daughter Lily and Hope, they're sisters now. They share secrets and giggle at bedtime and help each other brush their teeth. Kara. Ethan looked at her across the courtroom. She's the strongest person I know. She took in a baby that needed love and gave her everything. She works 2 jobs. She reads stories in funny voices. She makes sure both girls feel special and safe. He turned to the judge. I know what it looks like from the outside, but inside our home, there's love, there's healing, there's family. I may not have much money, but I have a community that supports us. I have skills to teach my daughters, and I have room in my heart for both the memory of their mother and the chance to be the father they need now. Tears rolled freely down his cheeks now. Please, he whispered. Please, don't take my daughter away. Don't separate these sisters. We may be unconventional, but we're family. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Judge Harrison studied Ethan for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Even Mr. Phillips seemed affected, shuffling his papers without real purpose. You may step down, Mr. Morales, the judge said quietly. As Ethan returned to his seat, he saw Miss Edna dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Kara reached for his hand immediately, her fingers intertwining with his. In that moment, despite the uncertainty ahead, they drew strength from each other just as they had been doing since that first day in the Dollar General checkout line. The morning dragged on as Rebecca's lawyer painted a grim picture of Ethan and Kara's situation. His words stung like paper cuts. Financially unstable, emotionally compromised, rushed decisions. With each accusation, Kara's shoulders hunched further, as if trying to make herself smaller. When it was finally her turn to speak, Kara rose on shaking legs. Her navy blue dress, borrowed from Miss Edna, felt like armor as she approached the stand. The wooden chair creaked as she sat, and she forced herself to look directly at Judge Harrison. Your Honor, Kara began, her voice barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. Your Honor, I know how this looks. A single woman, living with a man she barely knows, making decisions that affect a child's life. Her hands twisted in her lap. But Hope isn't just any child to me. From the moment I held her, she became my whole world. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I've watched her grow. I've kissed her, scraped knees, and celebrated every tiny victory. I was there for her first words, her first steps. Her voice cracked. And yes, maybe I made mistakes. Maybe I should have reached out to Ethan sooner. But everything I did to protect her. Judge Harrison leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. And now, Miss Langston, what are your thoughts about Mr. Morales' role in Hope's life? Kara glanced at Ethan, who sat with his hands clasped tightly together. Watching Ethan with Hope these past weeks, it's like seeing a missing puzzle piece fall into place. She lights up around it. They have the same laugh, the same way of scrunching their nose when they concentrate. A small smile touched her lips despite the tension. Then her expression grew serious again. But, Your Honor, I need to say something else. Kara took a deep breath, her hands gripping the wooden railing. If this court battle continues, if Hope has to watch adults fight over her like she's property, her voice wavered but held firm. I will voluntarily terminate my rights. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Ethan half rose from his seat before Miss Edna's hand on his shoulder kept him down. I love Hope too much to let her become a battlefield. Tears rolled freely down Kara's cheeks now. She deserves better than that. Better than what I went through as a child, watching adults tear each other apart in courtrooms, just like this one. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably in her seat, but her lawyer's expression remained unchanged. Judge Harrison studied Kara for a long moment. That's quite a statement. Miss Langston, are you certain you want to put that on record? Yes, Your Honor. Kara's voice was stronger now, even through her tears. Hope's happiness means more to me than any legal right. She deserves peace, stability, and love. If I have to step aside to ensure that, I will. As Kara returned to her seat, Miss Edna stood up, her presence commanding attention despite her small frame. Your Honor, if I may approach? Judge Harrison nodded, recognition flickering across her face. Judge Holloway. It's been some time. Miss Edna walked forward, her cane tapping quietly against the floor. She carried a sealed envelope. I have an affidavit I'd like to submit to the court, Your Honor. As both a former family court judge and a witness to the daily lives of Mr. Morales and Miss Langston. The bailiff took the envelope to Judge Harrison, who opened it carefully. The room fell silent as she read, her expression giving nothing away. In my 30 years on the bench, Miss Edna spoke into the silence. I learned that parenthood isn't about DNA or legal documents. It's about who shows up, who stays up all night with a sick child, who celebrates the small victories and soothes the big hurts. She looked directly at Rebecca. It's about who puts the child's needs above their own pride or pain. Judge Harrison finished reading and looked up. This is quite thorough, Judge Holloway, and these community testimonials are just a fraction of what I could gather, Your Honor. That house has become more than just a residence. It's become a home. Those children are thriving. I've seen it with my own eyes. The judge sat back, removing her reading glasses. Given the complexity of this case and the new evidence presented, I'm going to take 48 hours to review everything thoroughly before making my ruling. She looked around the courtroom. We'll reconvene on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Court is adjourned. The bang of the gavel seemed to break something in Kara. She slumped forward, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Ethan's arm went around her immediately, pulling her close. Come on, he whispered, helping her to her feet. Let's go home. They walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, Miss Edna following close behind. The old stone steps seemed longer going down than they had coming up. Neither Ethan nor Kara spoke as they made their way to the parking lot. At the car, Kara finally found her voice. I meant what I said in there, she said quietly. About giving up my rights if... Don't? Ethan cut her off gently. We're not there yet. We're in this together, remember? Miss Edna touched both their arms. Go home to those girls. Hold them close. Whatever happens Wednesday, you've shown that court what real family looks like. The drive home was silent, except for the soft country music playing on the radio. Kara stared out the window, one hand pressed against her mouth. Ethan kept glancing at her, wanting to say something to ease her pain, but finding no words big enough for the moment. When they pulled into the driveway, Mrs. Jensen from next door was sitting on their porch with Lily and Hope, who were coloring with chalk on the sidewalk. The girls looked up at the sound of the car, their faces breaking into identical smiles. Mommy, Daddy, Hope called out, running toward them with chalk-covered hands. Kara caught her in a fierce hug, not caring about the dust on her dress. Lily wrapped her arms around Ethan's legs, looking up at him with worried eyes. Is everything okay, Daddy? Ethan picked her up, holding her close. We'll know more in a couple of days, sweetheart. He reached out and pulled Hope and Kara into the embrace too, forming a tight circle of arms and hearts and hope. They stood there together in the late afternoon sun, devastated but united, four pieces of a puzzle that somehow, against all odds, fit perfectly together. The 2-day wait felt like an eternity stretching before them. Saturday morning dawned with a gentle warmth that seemed to mock their uncertainty. Ethan woke early, his mind racing with thoughts of what the future might hold. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirping of birds. He found Kara already in the kitchen, mechanically stirring a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Her eyes were rimmed with red, evidence of another sleepless night. The girls will be up soon, she whispered. her voice rough. Ethan nodded, reaching for the coffee pot. I was thinking, maybe we could take them on a picnic today? To that spot by Miller's Creek? A ghost of a smile crossed Kara's face. The one with the old oak tree? Yeah, it might be good for all of us to just be together. They packed simple sandwiches, juice boxes, and those little cookies the girls loved so much. Lily helped by carrying the light things, while Hope insisted on wearing her special pink sun hat. The morning sun painted everything in, soft golden light as they spread their blanket under the massive oak tree. "Push me on the swing, Daddy," Hope called out, pointing to the tire swing hanging from one of the sturdy branches. The word Daddy still made Ethan's heart skip a beat. He lifted her onto the tire, giving gentle pushes while Lily and Kara sat nearby, making daisy chains. The sound of the girls' laughter floated across the creek, mixing with the rustle of leaves and the gurgle of water over stones. "Higher!" Hope squealed, her little hands gripping the rope tightly. "Not too high," Kara cautioned, but she was smiling now. Really smiling, for the first time in days. They ate their lunch in a circle on the blanket, sharing bites and stories. Lily told them about the rabbit she'd seen in their backyard yesterday. Hope made up a song about peanut butter and jelly. For a few precious hours, they were just a family enjoying a weekend together. "Tell us about when you were little, Daddy," Lily requested as she nestled against Ethan's side. Ethan shared stories about growing up on his grandfather's farm, about learning to fix his first car, about the time he accidentally let all the chickens loose. The girls giggled, and even Kara leaned in, absorbed in his tales. "Your turn," Ethan nudged Kara gently. She hesitated, then began telling them about her favorite teacher in 3rd grade, who taught the class to make paper cranes. Soon, she was showing them how to fold napkins into simple origami shapes, her hands moving with remembered grace. As the afternoon sun began to sink, they packed up their belongings. The girls were tired but happy, their cheeks pink from playing. Hope fell asleep in Kara's arms on the walk home, while Lily held tight to Ethan's hand, chattering about the clouds. That evening, they ordered pizza, a rare treat, and watched The Little Mermaid together in the living room. The girls sat between them on the couch, a tangle of small limbs and sleepy smiles. When bedtime came, they gathered in Hope's room. It had become their routine to pray together, but tonight felt different, more urgent, more sacred. "Dear God," Ethan began, his voice steady despite the emotion thick in his throat. "Thank you for this day. Thank you for our family." Kara's hand found his in the dim light as the girls repeated their own simple prayers. "And please let us stay together," Hope added at the end, making Kara's grip tighten painfully around Ethan's fingers. After tucking the girls in, they returned to the living room. The house felt too quiet now, too heavy with unspoken fears. Kara sank onto the couch, and the brave face she'd worn all day finally crumbled. "I can't lose her," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I can't lose any of this." Ethan sat beside her, drawing her close. She turned into his shoulder, her tears soaking through his shirt. He held her, one hand stroking her hair, while his own tears fell silently. "Remember what Miss Edna said," he murmured. "We have to believe. We have to trust." Kara's shoulders shook with quiet sobs. "I'm so tired of being strong." "Then let me be strong for you right now." They sat there in the darkness, hands clasped, hearts beating in sync. The clock on the wall ticked away the minutes, each one bringing them closer to Monday's decision. Kara's breathing gradually steadied, but she didn't move away from Ethan's embrace. "Tell me something good," she whispered after a while. Ethan thought for a moment. "Remember last week when Hope tried to make breakfast by herself, and we found cereal all over the kitchen floor?" A watery laugh escaped Kara. "And Lily was trying to help clean up by sweeping it into piles with her hands. Or the time they decided to give each other haircuts with safety scissors." "Don't remind me." Kara groaned, but she was smiling now, even through her tears. They traded memories back and forth, each one a tiny light in the darkness of their uncertainty. Eventually, Kara's eyes grew, heavy, and she drifted off to sleep against Ethan's shoulder, their hands still intertwined. Ethan didn't move, didn't want to disturb this moment of peace. He watched the moonlight creep across the living room floor, listening to Kara's steady breathing, feeling the weight of her trust in his arms. In the quiet, he offered up one more prayer, not for himself, but for all of them, for this family that had come together in such an unexpected way. The night deepened around them, but they remained there on the couch, finding comfort in simply being together, holding on to these precious hours like the treasures they were. The courthouse loomed before them on Monday morning, its brick facade catching the early sunlight. Ethan's hands trembled as he straightened his borrowed tie. Beside him, Kara smoothed her navy dress for the 100th time, her fingers fidgeting with the hem, "Miss." Edna stood with them on the courthouse steps, her presence steady and reassuring. "Remember," she said, softly, "whatever happens in there, you two have already shown what real family means." The security checkpoints seemed to take forever. The metal detector beeped when Ethan walked through his steel-toed work boots, the ones he hadn't had time to change out of after his early morning emergency repair job. The guard waved him through with an understanding nod. Courtroom 3 felt smaller than it had during the previous hearing. Their lawyer, Mr. Patterson, waited for them at the defendant's table, his weathered briefcase open and ready. Across the aisle, Marianne's sister Catherine sat rigidly beside her expensive-looking attorney, her pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The wooden benches behind them filled quickly. Ethan recognized faces from the auto shop, the church, and even some of Lily's preschool teachers. The support wrapped around him like a warm blanket, but it couldn't quite stop his shaking hands. "All rise!" the bailiff called out, his voice echoing off the wood-paneled walls. Judge Martinez entered, her black robe swishing as she took her seat. Her face revealed nothing as she settled behind the bench and adjusted her glasses. "Be seated," she commanded, shuffling through the papers before her. "In the matter of custody regarding Hope Langston, I have reviewed all submitted testimonies, character references, and relevant documentation." Ethan felt Kara's hand slip into his. Her palm was ice cold. "This case," Judge Martinez continued, "presents unique circumstances that require careful consideration of what truly serves the best interests of the child in question." The room held its collective breath. Ethan could hear his heartbeat thundering in his ears. Mr. Morales has demonstrated, through both testimony and community support, his commitment to fatherhood and his capability to provide a nurturing environment. Miss Langston has shown remarkable dedication as Hope's adoptive mother, creating stability during challenging circumstances. Catherine shifted in her seat, her attorney leaning forward slightly. The petitioner's concerns about financial stability have been addressed through Mr. Seed. Morales' steady employment history and the additional income from Miss Langston's teaching position. Their current living arrangement, while unconventional, has proven beneficial to both children involved. Judge Martinez paused, removing her glasses. Her eyes swept the courtroom before settling on the parties before her. Family law exists not to divide families, but to protect children and ensure their well-being. In this case, I see no evidence that the current arrangement has caused any harm to Hope. In fact, all evidence points to a child thriving in an environment of love and support. Ethan felt Kara's grip tighten, his throat constricted with emotion. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that joint custody be granted to Ethan Morales and Kara Langston, with Mr. Morales' paternal rights fully recognized. Miss Langston will retain her adoptive mother status, with both parties sharing legal and physical custody. A wave of movement rippled through the courtroom. Someone in the back let out a muffled sob. Furthermore, the judge continued, raising her voice slightly over the growing murmur. "I find no merit in the petitioner's claim of unfitness. Both Mr. Morales and Miss Langston have demonstrated admirable dedication to providing a stable, loving home for both children in their care." Catherine stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her face had drained of color. "Your Honor," her attorney began, but Judge Martinez held up her hand. "My decision is final," she stated firmly. "And I would like to add something." She leaned forward, her expression softening. "In my years on the bench, I've seen too many children torn apart by adults fighting over them. But here, I see two people who put aside their own comfort to create something beautiful for a child. As I've often said, a child cannot have too much love." The courtroom erupted in emotion. Behind them, people were hugging, crying, and whispering, "Thank you," toward heaven. Catherine gathered her things and swept toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, her attorney hurrying after her. Kara's legs gave out, and she collapsed into Ethan's arms, her body shaking with sobs. He held her tightly, his own tears falling freely into her hair. "Mr. Patterson was shaking their hands, saying something about paperwork, but the words barely registered. Miss Edna appeared beside them, her eyes glistening. "The girls are waiting with my daughter in the hallway," she reminded them gently. "They'll want to hear the good news." Ethan nodded, unable to speak. He kept one arm around Kara as they made their way toward the courtroom doors, their steps unsteady but together. The morning sun streamed through the hallway windows, painting everything in a warm, golden light. They could hear Lily and Hope's voices before they saw them, their laughter echoing off the marble walls. The sound wrapped around them like a promise, a future full of more such moments, more laughter, more love. "Thank you," Kara whispered, looking up at Ethan with tear-stained cheeks. He shook his head, his heart too full for words. They stood there for a moment, supporting each other, before pushing open the heavy doors to greet their daughters. The judge's words echoed in their minds. A child cannot have too much love. Looking at their small but mighty family, they knew those words would guide them forward, one day at a time, together. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Ethan's modest backyard as he wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. Wood shavings and sawdust covered his worn jeans, evidence of the day's labor. He studied the instruction manual one more time, though he'd practically memorized it by now. "Almost done, girls," he called out to Lily and Hope, who were bouncing with excitement on the back porch steps. "Can we help, Daddy?" Hope asked, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. The word still made his heart skip a beat every time she said it. It had been 3 weeks since the court ruling, and each day felt like a gift. "How about you two be my special supervisors?" Ethan suggested, tightening the last bolt on the swing set's frame. The structure stood proudly in the corner of the yard, solid pine wood that he'd carefully sanded and sealed. It wasn't fancy, but he'd built it with love, adding extra supports and checking each connection twice. Lily clapped her hands. "It's so big, like the one at the park." "Even better," Ethan said, "'cause this one's just for you two." The girls watched intently as he hung the swings, testing each chain with his full weight before declaring them safe. The rubber seats swayed gently in the breeze, ready for their first riders. "Okay, safety check time," he announced, motioning the girls over. They rushed forward, practically vibrating with anticipation. "Remember what we talked about? Always hold on tight with both hands, no jumping off while it's moving, and take turns pushing each other." "We know, Daddy," they chorused in unison, giggling at their synchronized response. Ethan helped them onto the swings, making sure they were seated properly. "Ready?" "Yes," they squealed. He gave each girl a gentle push, watching as they began to pump their legs just like he'd taught them. Their laughter filled the air, pure joy echoing across the yard. The sound made his chest tight with happiness. The screen door creaked, and Kara stepped out onto the porch carrying a tray with 4 glasses of fresh lemonade, ice cubes clinking against the sides. She set it down on the small table they'd recently added to the deck. "Higher, Daddy," Hope called out. "Me too," Lily added. Ethan obliged, giving them each another careful push. The swing set was rock solid, not even creaking under the movement. He'd made sure of that, spending extra time anchoring it deep in the ground. "Look at me," Hope called to Kara. "I'm flying." "I see you, sweetheart," Kara called back, her voice warm with affection. "You're both doing great." Ethan stepped back to watch them swing on their own, their small legs pumping in rhythm. The sight of them, side by side, matching grins on their faces, filled him with a contentment he hadn't felt in years. These moments, these simple, perfect moments, made everything they'd been through worth it. He walked over to the porch, where Kara stood holding out a glass of lemonade for him. "Thanks," he said, taking a long drink. The cool sweetness was exactly what he needed. "You did an amazing job with the swing set," Kara said, settling into one of the deck chairs. "They're going to spend hours out here." "That was the plan," Ethan replied with a smile. "Figured it would help tire them out before bedtime, too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their Farah daughters play. The past few weeks had settled into a rhythm that felt natural, like they'd been doing this forever. The custody arrangement worked well. Kara had found an apartment nearby, and they split the week evenly, though they often ended up spending time together as a family anyway. The girls had adapted beautifully, treating both houses as home. They'd even started having Sunday dinners together, a tradition that Miss Edna often joined. The elderly neighbor had become like a grandmother to both girls, showering them with cookies and stories. Ethan headed back to the swings to help slow them down. "Time for a lemonade break, engineers." The girls reluctantly agreed to pause their swinging, racing each other to the porch for their drinks. They sat cross-legged on the deck, chattering about how high they'd gone and who had swung the fastest. "Careful with the glasses," Kara reminded them gently, handing them each a napkin. Ethan leaned against the porch railing, taking in the scene. The yard was small, the grass needed mowing, and the fence could use a fresh coat of paint, but none of that mattered. What mattered was right here. His daughters happy and safe, Kara's steady presence, the peace they'd finally found. Later, as he gathered up his tools and stored them in the garage, Ethan glanced back at the house. Through the kitchen window, he caught sight of Kara helping the girls rinse their glasses at the sink. She looked up, meeting his gaze, and smiled. That soft, genuine smile that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. He smiled back, his heart full. Sometimes the best answers to prayers came in unexpected packages, he thought, remembering Mary Ann's last letter. She had hoped he'd find love and fatherhood again, and here he was, blessed with both girls in his life and a partnership with Kara that grew stronger each day. The sound of the girls' laughter drifted through the open window as they helped Kara start dinner. Ethan took one last look at the swing set, standing sturdy and proud in the golden evening light. It wasn't just a play structure, it was a promise, a symbol of the stable, joy-filled life they were building together. He heard Kara calling him in for dinner, the girls echoing her call with their own excited voices. This was home, he realized. Not just the house or the yard, but this family they'd created, bound together by love, choice, and grace. The evening settled over the neighborhood like a soft blanket, bringing with it a gentle breeze that carried the sweet scent of late summer jasmine. Ethan had strung lights across the porch earlier that week, simple white bulbs that cast a warm glow over the weathered wood. They swayed slightly in the evening air, creating dancing shadows that reminded him of fireflies. He and Kara sat side by side on the porch swing he'd recently fixed up, their movements creating a gentle back-and-forth rhythm. The girls were inside, supposedly getting ready for bed, though. The occasional giggle and thump suggested they were doing more playing than preparing. "Should we go check on them?" Kara asked, though she made no move to get up. Ethan shook his head, smiling. Let them wear themselves out a bit more. They had quite a sugar rush from those brownies Miss Edna brought over. The mention of their neighbor brought a chuckle from both of them. Miss? Edna had taken to dropping by almost daily with some treat or another, claiming she was testing new recipes. They all knew it was just an excuse to spend time with the girls. The string lights twinkled above them, creating a cocoon of soft illumination that felt separate from the rest of the world. In this gentle light, Ethan could see the slight curl in Kara's hair, the same curl Mary Ann had worn. But now, after all these months, the similarity didn't bring the sharp pain it once had. "I found some old photos today," Ethan said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "While I was cleaning out that box, from the top shelf in the garage." Kara turned slightly toward him, her eyes soft with understanding. "Of Mary Ann?" He nodded, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a slightly worn photograph. In it, Mary Ann sat on this very porch, her smile radiant as she held up a small potted plant. She was so proud of that little herb garden she started, killed every single plant within a month. He chuckled at the memory. But she kept trying. That was just her way, never giving up on anything she cared about. Kara took the photo gently, studying it in the string light's glow. "She sent me so many pictures of those plants. Every new sprout was like a major victory to her." "She would have loved what you've done with the garden now," Ethan said, glancing toward the flourishing vegetable patch Kara had started in the spring. "All those tomatoes and peppers, she would have been taking notes. And probably still killing everything," Kara added with a fond laugh. "Probably," Ethan agreed, his voice warm with remembrance. "But she would have been so happy about all of this." He gestured vaguely at the porch, the house, the evidence of their shared life scattered around them. Children's toys in the yard, 2 different welcome mats layered on top of each other because neither girl would let their favorite one go. "You think so?" Kara asked softly, her shoulder brushing against his as the swing swayed. Ethan was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "I know so," he finally said. "She would have wanted this, all of it. The girls being sisters, Hope having both of us in her life, this." He paused, his hand finding Kara's in the dim light. "This family we've made." The string lights cast a gentle glow on Kara's face as she turned toward him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her smile was steady. "Sometimes I feel guilty," she admitted, "for feeling so happy here, like I'm taking something that wasn't meant for me." "Hey," Ethan said softly, squeezing her hand. "You're not taking anything. You're adding to it, making it more." He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Mary Ann always said love multiplies. It doesn't divide. She was right about that, just like she was right about so many things. Kara leaned into him then, her head finding that spot between his shoulder and chest that seemed made for her. The swing creaked softly as they sat in comfortable silence, the string lights creating patterns on the porch floor. "I found her last journal entry the other day," Ethan said after a while. "She wrote about hope, about the embryos. She knew what she was doing, leaving that possibility open. She wrote that she hoped whoever raised her child would have enough love to share with everyone who needed it." His voice caught slightly. "She was writing about you, Kara. She just didn't know it yet." Kara's hand tightened in his, and when she looked up at him, the string lights reflected in her eyes like stars. The moment stretched between them, full of everything they'd been through, everything they'd become to each other. Ethan leaned down as Kara tilted her face up, and their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home. It was soft and sweet, carrying all the weight of their shared history and all the promise of their future. The moment was broken by two very distinct voices from inside the house. "Daddy, Mommy?" Hope called out. "Can we have one more story, please?" Lily's voice chimed in. "The one about the princess and the dragon?" They pulled apart slowly, both smiling. Kara's eyes were bright as she looked at him. "Maybe," she whispered. "Hope was born so we could find each other again." "Mommy," came another call from inside. "Daddy." The spell of the moment lingered as they sat there, neither quite ready to move yet. The string lights continued their gentle dance above them, and somewhere in the distance, a cricket started its evening song. The fluorescent lights of the Dollar General hummed overhead, casting the same harsh glow Ethan remembered from that fateful day nearly a year ago. Now he stood in an almost identical checkout line, but everything else had changed. Hope tugged at his sleeve, her dark curls bouncing as she pointed to a display of colorful hair clips. "Daddy, can we get those? Please?" "We already got what we came for, sweetie," Ethan replied gently, adjusting the shopping basket filled with basic groceries, milk, bread, peanut butter, and yes, those dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets both girls loved so much. Lily, standing on his other side, wrapped her small hand around two of his fingers. "But Hope's right, they're so pretty." She gazed up at him with those big brown eyes that reminded him so much of Mary Ann. Ethan glanced at their basket, doing a quick mental calculation. These days, the math wasn't quite as tight. The auto shop had picked up more clients, and sharing expenses with Kara meant they could breathe a little easier. Still, old. Habits died hard, and he found himself counting every penny. The line inched forward slowly. Behind them, a young mother struggled with a squirming toddler who was reaching for every candy bar within sight. Her shopping cart was loaded with diapers, formula, and baby food. Dark circles under her eyes told a story Ethan knew all too well, the exhaustion of single parenthood. The toddler's whimpers grew louder, threatening to turn into a full meltdown. The mother bounced him gently, whispering soothing words, but her expression showed mounting stress as she tried to keep her place in line while managing her upset child. Ethan felt a familiar tug at his heart. He remembered standing in this very store, counting coins and clutching coupons, Lily by his side. He remembered the weight of worry, the constant calculations, the prayer that they'd have enough, and he remembered letting someone go ahead of him, a simple act that had changed everything. He turned to the young mother with a warm smile. "Would you like to go ahead of us?" Relief flooded her tired face. "Are you sure? That would be. Thank you so much." "Of course," Ethan said, stepping aside with the girls. "We're not in any hurry." As the young mother moved past them, her toddler still fussing, she turned to give Ethan a grateful smile. "Thank you again. It's been one of those days." Ethan just nodded, his own smile deepening as he thought about how one of those days had brought Kara and Hope into his life. The memory of that first moment, seeing Kara's face, so like Mary Ann's, the shock that had brought him to his knees, felt both recent and distant, like a dream that had somehow become real. "That was nice, Daddy," Hope said, leaning against his leg. Lily nodded in agreement. "Like when you let Miss Kara go first, right? Before she was our mama?" Ethan's heart swelled at Lily's words. The girls had started calling Kara Mama a few months ago, and every time they did, it felt like a small miracle. "That's right, sweetheart. Sometimes the smallest kindnesses can bring the biggest blessings." They finally reached the checkout counter, where Mrs. Chen, the regular cashier, greeted them with familiar warmth. "Hello, Mr. Morales, and how are my favorite little customers today?" "Good." The girls chorused, making Mrs. Chen chuckle as she began scanning their items. "No Miss Kara today, Mrs.?" Chen asked, bagging the groceries. She's finishing up at the library, Ethan explained. Kara had recently started working part-time at the local library, reading stories to children during morning sessions. We're picking up a few things for dinner. As they walked out to the car, the girls skipped ahead, playing their usual game of avoiding the cracks in the sidewalk. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, and a cool breeze carried the promise of evening. Ethan watched his daughters, both of them, his heart filling with gratitude. Hope, with her boundless energy and sweet smile that could light up a room. Lily, with her quiet wisdom and generous spirit that seemed to grow every day. Both of them had adapted to their new family with the resilient grace that only children seem to possess. They reached their car, still the same trusted old Corolla, but now with 2 car seats in the back instead of 1. As Ethan helped the girls buckle in, Lily looked at him with those thoughtful eyes of hers. "Daddy?" she said, her voice soft but clear. "Yes, sweetheart? I like our family." The simple statement caught him off guard, making his throat tight with emotion. He thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The grief, the struggles, the unexpected joy, the answered prayers. He thought about Kara's strength and grace, about Hope's infectious laughter, about Lily's unwavering love that had made room for more without hesitation. He looked at both his daughters, these precious gifts that made every day worth living, and smiled. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." As he closed their doors and walked around to the driver's seat, Ethan sent up a quiet prayer of thanks. Sometimes the biggest blessings came disguised as ordinary moments. A long line at a dollar store, a simple act of kindness, a child's honest words. And sometimes, when you least expect it, those moments weave together to create something beautiful. A family, pieced together by love and grace, stronger for having been broken and rebuilt. He started the car, the familiar rumble of the engine mixing with the girls' chatter in the back seat. They had a home to return to, where Kara would be waiting, where dinner would be made and stories would be shared, where 4 hearts that once beat separately now moved in perfect rhythm together. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Ethan Morales, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.